So to start with, we're going to just jump into some really quick gesture drawings of this figure holding a rope. So some of the things to be thinking about right away is, how are you holding your tool? Are you grasping it tight or loose? I recommend going looser so you can kind of let your hand just flow over your paper. This gesture or initial part of the drawing isn't about being specific, but you're just trying to get down the general idea of how the model's standing. So if you refer to my drawing that's happening currently, you can start to see this kind of like V shape from each foot up to the hip, to the other foot, and then up into the shoulder, to the hands. So we'll go ahead and erase the first one, and we'll just do the same thing, right? So as you start this second one, you should be thinking about what worked in the first drawing and what didn't work. Maybe you just start with two long, simple lines to describe just the overall pose. So one from the head all the way to the right foot, and then one from a hip to the left foot. These cylinder shapes that I'm placing in the drawing currently are all just landmarks. So there's no detail. It's just, here's a hand, here's where I think the shoulder is, here's where I think the two knees are. And you start to see these connecting lines. These lines aren't measuring as much as they're just placement of where I think one knee is to another knee, one foot to the other foot, shoulder to the hand, how far out in front of the face is his right hand. So all really simple things that you can just look at the model and ask yourself, is something to the left, to the right? Is it above it? Is it below it? So here's the final gesture drawing. So now that we have a general idea about how this pose is set up, maybe it's easier to start this really loose and just kind of let it flow from the one hand that's the furthest away all the way down to the right foot and then back up. All of these lines are just really searching out the overall pose. No details, so we're not drawing any muscles or anything like that. We're just letting the pencil go up and down, kind of searching out placement. So if you look to the photograph of the model, you start to see me sketch over the photo. And this is just what I'd be thinking about as I continue my gesture drawing. Where's the front of his head in relationship to his hand? What's the angle from his shoulder to his furthest hand? All of these things that are really simple to do in your own drawing can really push how we perceive where each part of his body is located. So I'll just go ahead and sketch these right on top of the drawing. And these don't have to be that dark in your drawing. So at this point in the drawing, we're going to start thinking about how his form is pushing in and out of space. So the only thing we can see currently from the photograph is his right side. So we're going to keep just kind of exploring this idea of wrapping these lines around. So you can see in my drawing, it almost starts to turn him into this slinky idea. And so this isn't about making him kind of like scribbly, and it doesn't have to be this dark either, but it's about just searching for a way to wrap these lines around this form. And as you continue to get comfortable with this, you can start to get more specific about locating the actual direction that you would turn these ellipses. So if you notice from his hip into his stomach, there's this definite change of position. Something maybe that's easier to see is in his forearm to his shoulder. Time you get lost in your drawing, you can re-find or relocate where or how each part of the model is working. So front of the head to the hand again, back of the head to the shoulder. You can connect all the way from the top of the figure all the way to the bottom if you like. So at this point in the drawing, I'm going to start using my eraser. The eraser is a great tool for actually adding this dimension or volume because we have already made so many lines that taking it away pushes this idea of the depth, right? Like our brain starts to conceive what's in front and what's behind, and just because of value, the eraser being lighter, we start to perceive those lighter lines coming forward. At any point in your drawing, you can always pull out your eraser and just start to draw with it. It doesn't have to be a tool that you completely get rid of areas. This can be a really nice benefit to your drawing toolbox by always having this eraser ready to go, maybe just in your other hand. So as I keep going back and forth between my eraser and adding marks or lines to my figure, I also want to be thinking about what I can't see in the drawing. So these rough outlines of maybe where a femur goes or where the hip is, or maybe even where his shoulder connects down to his elbow, can really be useful in just positioning how your model moves front to back. In the photograph, we can only see the right shoulder. We clearly know he has a left shoulder, but how do we get that to read in our drawing? One way to think about this in your mind's eye is to start to imprint the skeletal system into your drawing. And it doesn't have to be as dark as I'm doing it, but these little tricks can really help push your drawing to a new whole level. So that's it for part one. Check out part two to find out how this drawing is completed.